Library Out Loud updates you all about the fun and interesting things going on in the Spokane County Library District. Sponsored by STCU and the Spokane County Library District.
Hello and welcome to Library Out Loud. I'm Jane Baker with the Spokane County Library District, and welcome to our regular Library Out Loud program. Joining me today is Mary Ellen Brax. Mary Ellen is a Public Services Manager and Librarian specializing in early learning at the Spokane County Library District. Hi, Mary Ellen.
Hello, Jane. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for coming on to the program again. We're here to talk about, we talk about a lot of things on this program because the library does a lot of different things. But today we're actually going to talk quite a bit about reading, which shouldn't be a surprise for a lot of people. But we're going to talk about reading and how important it is, as if that's news to anybody. I'm sure it isn't, but reading from the very beginning of life. So we're talking a new program we have called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. And it's a nationwide program, correct?
That is correct. I think it got started in Las Vegas through a foundation, and it was just the whole goal of the program was to provide kind of a fun and bonding experience for kids to just learn more about language and vocabulary before they started school. And it was so to build those vocabulary and early literacy skills before they start kindergarten. So 1,000 books before kindergarten. I know, it's daunting, right?
It seems so overwhelming, 1,000 books before kindergarten, but really it isn't. Can you break it down for us?
If you break it down, if you read one book an evening, you'd be done in 3 years, right? And so, 356 days in a year, you can, little over, 2 years, 2 years, 8 months, and so many days. But it really is, when you think about it, when you sit down and read to your child, sometimes you might read one book, sometimes you can't get away without reading 5 books. So you can count everything that you read. So if you're listening to a story online, I was going to say if you go to story time, but we don't have story times going on right now. But, if you listen to a story online, or older sibling reads a story, you can count that. You can count the same book. Kids love repetition, and a lot of times parents are sick of the book before the child does. Those of us parents have experienced that. But every time you read that book, you can write that book down and count it towards your 1,000 books. So
I do remember when my son was little, it would be like, read it again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we read that one today. I don't care. Read that one again. So that's okay.
That
counts.
And that's part of the learning process. Yeah, exactly. So,
They
do repetition.
So it doesn't seem to be so hard then when you think about reading a book a day to kids. Okay. Mm-mm. All right. It's doable. The 3-year time frame, it allows you to skip a few days. You can repeat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe on vacation.
There you go. So 1,000 books, if you're stuck, say if you have 20 books at home for kids, we know where to go to find more books for kids to read, right?
Yes. So, that's something where you can, put some books on hold online, and you can pick them up curbside right now. So you still have access to books. If you're at a loss of what you would like for your 3-year-old too, we have a book butler service, which is basically you go online, you fill out a form, you say, I have a 3-year-old. These are some things they like. I would love, 5 more picture books, and then they'll get them ready, and then they'll and put them on hold for you, and then you can pick them up. So it's a great service if you're stuck for a recommendation, or say your preschooler wants a new train book because they get into their, subjects that they just, everything they have to read about has to be on that subject. I pick trains because a lot of times that's one of our big requests. They want trains, planes, vehicles. So that would be a way to get some new titles too. So there's lots of different ways to go about getting suggestions there
Okay,
for your.
that's great. So really, when you have a newborn, say I have a 6 month old, and I have them
Mhm.
on my lap and I'm reading the book, what does that do for a 6 month old?
Well, really, they're hearing the sound of your voice, which they're pretty much used to by that time, because even in utero, they get used to the sound of your voice. But they
Mhm.
also, it's also a bonding moment. You get to snuggle in with your child. You've got them in your lap. You've got the book in your lap. It's kind of a nurturing experience for them and a bonding experience for you. So it really, social emotionally, that really does develop their confidence, because really we want kids to feel safe and secure, and sitting and reading with an adult who is someone who's very special in their lives is going to make a big impression on them and create that special bonding moment. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's and you can. I just remember my mother-in-law when she was visiting us. I was reading. She was there right after my oldest was born, and she said, "Are you reading to him already?" And I said, "Yes, he's used to listening to me read. I read during story time, when I was pregnant, so he's used to hearing my voice." But really, I started when my children were infants reading to them. So
Mhm.
it really does make a difference because they're hearing all that language. So it helps with language development too. It helps with vocabulary development, because a lot of times the words that you might see in books aren't necessarily the words that you might use in conversation, so that you're
Mm.
picking up and expanding the vocabulary. So the more
Mhm.
words that children know or have heard, not that they know, but that have heard by the time they reach kindergarten, the easier the learning process is as they learn to begin to read. So that's just something to keep in mind, that hearing language is a very important piece of development.
So you can almost not go wrong at all by reading to an infant starting early. They get these
Yep.
good, warm and fuzzy feelings related to reading,
Yeah.
and then they start hearing and the
Mhm.
sentence structure and that kind of thing. So it's truly planting the seeds to foster a love of reading, even if you're
Right.
reading to a child who can't really see the pages yet, right?
Right. No, correct. So, yeah, it's all a piece into building that love of reading, and that's what we really want kids to learn, is to have a love of reading, so that it develops into a love of learning, and so
Mhm.
then school isn't so daunting when you start at school. That
Yeah.
they have background knowledge there. They call that scaffolding in the educational world. That you've given them a background, so which they go into school and they're just more ready to learn new things when they get into
Mhm.
school. So
Mhm.
yeah, along with the reading goes talking too, and having conversations with your children. So um, we have a program here called ELO, Everyday Language and Learning Opportunities. And so
Mhm.
along with the reading part goes the talking part, because the more conversations that a child has and that it's back and forth, the more that they learn in terms of conversation and vocabulary. And so you might, there's a little process by which you can talk with a child to get them to talk more to you, rather than, asking open ended questions rather than a yes or no question.
Mhm.
Because let's face it, you're talking with a toddler, for a little while, their favorite word is no. So you want to get
Huh.
them to expand on that a little bit. But
Mhm.
basically, you ask a question. And when they answer it, you repeat what they've said, and then you expand on it. So you might have a question on, what does the dog like to play with? And they might say the ball. And you say, yes, the dog loves to play with the ball. What else do they like to play with? So that you can then get them to talk and speak back to you and say something. And then you just start the whole process over to keep that conversation going, where you question, repeat, expand, and then ask another question. And so that helps to learn, just that they hear all these vocabulary words. When we talk about vocabulary, it's not that they necessarily have to know how to use the word, but it's just that they've heard the words. And so they talk about the 30 million word gap. There's been a little bit of controversy about that maybe they don't need to hear 30 million words. It doesn't have to be 30 million different words. It just basically the premise is that you need to have conversations with your child and that they hear language being spoken to them, and then they have the opportunities to answer. So that
So it's understanding, taking turns in a conversation, hearing new words that they might not know, but in the context, so they can kind of figure out what that word means, maybe that kind of stuff. This all relates back to a phrase that I hear you say quite often, and that is, you are your child's first teacher.
First and most important teacher. Yep.
First and most important. Love that. Well, we have lots of resources aside from you, which is probably the greatest resource we have at the district. But aside from your knowledge, we have a lot of resources to help parents be that first teacher, or to give them a little guidance, because that can be daunting as a new parent going, oh, I'm a new parent, but I'm also their teacher. So we can help with that. We're going to take a quick break and then come back and let's talk about some of that here. So we'll be right back with Mary Ellen Brax on Library Out Loud.
What? You haven't been to the library lately? Stop in today and see that the library is more than books. Spokane County Library District facilities feature on-site technology, including Wi-Fi, computers, and printers, as well as free use of meeting rooms. The Library District offers events and programs for all ages, from story times to career development and employer classes to Social Security workshops. Our staff is well trained and happy to help. Find out more about your library at scld.org.
I'm Jade Becker, and I'm a senior at Chewelah High School. I'm at STCU's Money Live event. In this scenario that we played today, I was a realtor. My spouse was a city worker. We had an 11-month-old child, and there was a lot of spending for that child, like diapers and formula and had to buy toys and clothing. I'm very glad that I had this experience. It was super helpful. You need this to get far and ahead in life. I'm Jade Becker, and STCU is here for good.
And welcome back to Library Out Loud. I'm Jane Baker, talking with Mary Ellen Brax. We're both from the Spokane County Library District. Today we're talking about early learning and a new reading challenge we have called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. And we were talking just before the break, Mary Ellen, about being a child's first and most important teacher. Can you expand on that thought a little bit?
Well, you spend the most time with your child. You really learn how your child takes in information, learns. And so you are kind of setting their path, so to speak, as before they start school. So you can take some everyday moments and turn them into learning experiences. And so it's just that, you're teaching them how to walk. You're teaching them how to talk. It's all of that just ties in together. And that's all teaching. I mean, we think that comes naturally, and it does to some extent, but you are the one who's guiding them. So for all intents and purposes, yes, you are your child's first teacher. So that's just something for us to keep in mind as adults, that yes, they're watching your every move. They're taking in everything that you're doing. And, how often parents do we often say, "Oh my gosh, that was just so me right there," or they're imitating something. We heard our oldest, we had a dog at the time, and we'd hear him saying this really deep voice, "No, Shunka," which was our dog's name. And so he was just imitating us as we were talking to our dog, who was a puppy, and he would reprimand her too, but he was just imitating exactly what his father and I had done. So
Mhm.
yeah, learn by watching. They are observing us, our every
That's
move.
right. They don't always listen to what you say, but they always see what you're doing, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So when when you start thinking about um, being this teacher and yeah, you help them learn to walk and ride their bikes and stuff, but all these other things, you sometimes take for granted that it just happens,
Yeah.
or maybe just they're in school, or it's like, what do I do as a parent to facilitate this better? And we have some great resources at the library district. And I know a project that you worked on quite a bit for our website was getting ready for kindergarten. And
Yeah.
we have many, many pages on our website about that. Can you talk about what people will find when they go to that section of our website?
Yes, they'll tell us what we've done is we've broken down what is kind of the expectations when your child enters kindergarten. I
Mm.
mean, I know when I was little, when I went to kindergarten, that's where I learned my letters, that's where I learned my numbers and everything. We know now that kids can take in and learn a lot more information by the time they hit kindergarten age. So, what are the expectations when you get to kindergarten? And it's not just knowing your letters or being able to count to 10, but there's social emotional. So, how are they when they have an obstacle in front of them? Are they able to work through it, or do they fall apart if they can't do it? Um, and some of that is just natural. And one thing I like to remind parents, you'll find this on the website too, is that um, development is on a spectrum. So, not every 2-year-old or 3-year-old is going to be at the same exact spot. Even if they were born on the same day, you develop at different rates. So, some child
Mhm.
may be really into the numbers, some child may be really into the letters at first. One of the things is physical development too. Can they run? Can they hop on one foot? You have to be able to hop before you can actually skip. Skipping is actually a skill that comes later on in development, more around kindergarten, first grade, so to speak. So it's not something a 3-year-old can easily develop because they just don't have um, those skills quite yet.
Mhm.
So there's language. So that's the spoken. When they talk about language, they're talking about how many words do they know? How do they speak? Do they have inflection in their voice? Um, Also, literacy is just those early literacy skills. Just knowing how to handle a book. Knowing that you read. They follow the words from left to right, how the pages turn, how to hold the book, and then cognitive. So, can art projects are a really good way to develop cognitive skills because you're having to make decisions about what you're
Mm.
putting on your paper or what you're going to draw next. So, it's those being able to work through a problem that comes up is part of cognitive skills. And then there's math skills. And so it's knowing your numbers and one-to-one correspondence, which if they see the letter one, do they know that that means the same as one red apple on the table? So that one-to-one
Mm.
correspondence between the numeral and then the number of objects that may be in front of them. That's the point in Washington State where our kiddos are coming in lower than expected. We've made some great strides. A lot of that is that you're just assuming that kids need to know their letters, but actually, kids are great little mathematicians. So you can really work on number knowledge there, and and come up with some fun little games for them to do. Like if I take away 2 decks, how many decks are going to be left? So it's you finger plays play into that a lot too, with learning your letters too. I mean, learning your numbers too. If you have like the 5 little ducks went out to play, and then social emotional is a big thing, which I mentioned before too. So there's 6 domains which they're assessing kids on as they come in, and it's not a test that they have to pass. Basically, it's just seeing where that particular child is in any of those given domains, and basically, it's to help the teacher know where she needs to start with the kiddos that are in her classroom. So
Gotcha.
it's a little bit more difficult this year, I would imagine, being that it's all virtual. So in most places here in Washington State, but those are just some things that you can be working on. And some of those come up in everyday moments. So I like to think of mealtime as a great one where you can be working on a lot of those skills at the same time. If they have to make a choice between which vegetable they're going to eat today. How many bites will they take out of something, and estimating how many bites might be left in terms of math. And then just your dinner conversation is helping to build language skills there. So, you can, and just even holding the fork and the knife is part of physical skills, because it's not only gross motor skills, it's also fine motor skills that you want to work on. So giving them opportunities to draw with crayons or hold a pencil is great for developing fine motor skill. Those finger plays that I was just saying, like the 5 little ducks running away, and that is also a great way to work on those fine motor skills. So when you go to the web page, you'll see all that spelled out a little bit more succinctly than what I just described. But also for each category, we also have suggested activities that you can do with your child too, that fall into those categories, to give you some examples of what you can be doing with them. So a lot of information on the page.
It's all on scld.org, and you can look for Ready for Kindergarten, and there's several pages there. Lots of ideas you've done on that, Mary Ellen. Unbelievable work. We have a couple minutes left, and you mentioned ELO a little bit earlier, and this was a fun project that you worked on, and you worked with my department on creating flashcards and signs. We'd have just a couple minutes. Talk about ELO a little bit.
So ELO is something that we worked on with the Early Learning Coalition here in town, also with Washington STEM. So this last segment, we actually had a grant from Washington STEM. So we came up with story cards, basically, that help to promote conversation. And we've got 4 story cards, sets of story cards that'll be coming out. One is on laundry time. One is meal time, grocery store. We were just trying to find things that happen in every day where you can start those conversations. We also have at a couple of our libraries, we have our ELO trail signs too, which was a great fun project, which you got to help out with when we worked with Eastern Washington University and their graphics arts department, and the students helped develop some plans for our trail signs, and then we got to pick which ones we thought would work the best for what we were doing. So we've got trail signs at Moran Prairie, Otis Orchards, and soon to be Deer Park. I'm not sure if Deer Parks are up yet. But basically, you follow this trail, and there's a sign there, and it has all these cute ELO characters on there. There's an eagle, a moose, a bear, a skunk, and then there's questions there that you can ask your child, and then that promote this conversation. So a lot of fun. We're really excited about this last grant too that we have, because we're working on math skills. So that's to kind of boost those ready for kindergarten math skills coming up, where we're lots of math vocabulary. You don't think about certain words as being math vocabulary, but for preschoolers, if you talk about what's above or below, next to, underneath, I mean, just words like that, those positional words are pretty important when it comes to math. So we want kids to have a basic, not a little bit of an understanding that they've heard the words before, so that they have something to go on when they start kindergarten and start to hear like the numbers, and that they're counting. They know they've counted before. So LO is really extending those language opportunities that you might have with your child every day.
Mm-hmm.
So
The LO,
yeah.
LO was a great project. That was a lot of fun to work with the college kids, and they worked with us to design this for the younger kids. So yes, Moran Prairie, Otis Orchards, and soon, if not already, at Deer Park. It's a trail outside. It's going to be nice this weekend. What a great thing to do, right? Come with the libraries, you can still access those trails. Yeah. Mary Ellen, thank you for all the work you do, the great work you do in helping kids get ready for education and learning and reading. And it's fabulous work. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for being on the program today. Until next time, that's Library Out Loud. We'll see you later.
Thanks for watching. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or check out any of our other programs on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Sponsored by the Spokane County Library District and STCU.